Hi, this is David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here in studio with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
All right. So before we started the show today, Bill and I were chatting about this issue with EV fires. And I
Yeah.
get it all the time. EVs are catching on fire. They're exploding. People are dying.
Yeah.
And, it's
By
like,
the way, parking garages and HOAs now are starting to ban EVs because they'll catch fire.
yeah, and
Yeah.
these people have no clue. So
No.
I started doing some research because I was really curious. It's like, well, how many? And because I'd had somebody post these pictures of BYDs on fire in China. So I sent them back a picture of Fords on fire in the United States. I mean, I can just go on the internet and find, there's lots of pictures of cars on fire because worldwide, based on the number of cars on the road and type of EV or ICE, your chances are 60 times higher to have your gas car catch on fire than an EV. And so this one was really getting to me. And then last night, I'm driving home and there was a car on fire on the side of the interstate. And it was a gas car, of course, but it just made me think about this even more because of the fact of, how that keeps playing out. So I started doing a little research. I was curious how many people die annually in EV car fires. We are not counting EV bikes. Okay, there's a difference between an EV bicycle and an EV car by a big margin. Okay, and there have been problems. We know that there are problems with cheap Chinese EV bicycles.
I warned my neighbor who came up and she has just bought her son a bike. She's going to buy her other son an e-bike, and she bought herself an e-bike. And they were looking for advice and just make sure that you get good quality batteries or you get a U.S. produced and known source of bike. So yes, we admit that there have been issues with e-bike batteries. Cars,
not so much. In the United States last year, there were 0 deaths from EV fires. Okay, in the United States, in gas-powered cars, there from just the fires, there was 560 deaths in the United States alone. That's the average for the last 10 years. Okay, it's 560. Worldwide, there were 4 EV deaths, the whole planet. Okay, if you just simply took the population of the United States and multiplied it by 20, you would have had at least 10,000 gas-powered car deaths from fires. That 560 United States represents more than are murdered with long guns, with rifles, shotguns, the deadly AR-15s, everything like that. I mean, it's a serious problem, but how many people worry about it? Your chances of dying in a gas-powered car or an EV or in a gas car are less than being struck by lightning. Okay. In fact, that could be what started some of the fires. Who knows? I did see where 20% of all gas-powered fire or gas car fires were from arson. Okay, so a large portion that didn't mean the ones where the people died, but of just ones in general. And I've seen pictures of Teslas where it was obvious somebody had poured gasoline on the car and set it on fire because the type of fire that was burning, it was not coming from the battery underneath.
How many of those were people who were underwater and their payments and the value of the value of the car just decided to, it caught fire. And of course, they set it themselves. So,
well, the good thing about that is then you hopefully it would burn up the odometer. People wouldn't be able to check to see how many miles they had on it for the insurance payout, right? So, anyways, oh God, an electric unicycle. Oh my God, that just sounds like you're certainly not worried about an EV fire when you could face plant on something.
Let's say it would be easy to get out of.
It'd be easy to get away from that thing if it caught on fire. But anyways, so I just thought it was fascinating because I get so tired of reading these things about all the people supposedly dying in EV fires.
It's an effort by the oil companies to make they see the handwriting on the wall. They know where this is all going eventually, right? If you have a long
Yeah.
term horizon, not just 2030, but you're looking beyond that, you see that they're, that that's going to be an issue. And so they're doing everything they can to, put out all kinds of information and disinformation about the technology. Are there problems? My God, yes, there is with every kind of technology that there is. Milkmaids back in the 1700s got kicked by their cows, right? I mean, this
No.
is going to happen. So,
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that, how that happened. But Bill, did you see a thing about the Chinese Model Y that the lady was driving? And I don't know how she did it. She was in town and she must have hit the accelerator by accident. But when she hit something, went up in the air, and the Model Y spun around 7 times and crashed, and
no.
everybody was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had 2 serious accidents like this in Teslas in the past year. They had the one where the guy tried to commit suicide by driving his family off a cliff, 150 feet, and everybody lived.
Yeah.
And it's really crazy to think.
Then the wife wants him to come back home and live with them. So, wow.
Well, maybe he's better now.
Let's hope so.
I mean, he was trying to commit suicide, take his family. He was worried that the whole family, the kids, were going to get sold for sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And it's pretty bizarre. But I want to show you this video, because this is
I haven't seen it, so
let's see here. And I don't know how fast this person could. There we go. There it's coming through the air.
Tesla,
you see it tumbling. That's a Tesla Model Y.
Many parked cars
were also
damaged. An on-site driving recorder video showed that a Tesla jumped into the.
Yeah.
And she took out a lot of cars in the process.
Oh yeah, it took out a lot of cars. I just don't see how she got airborne in that thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know if this video will show a picture of them afterwards, but the airbags all deployed.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because after the thing happened, there was a guy in the front seat. The woman was driving, and he was pulling out his phone and doing stuff on his phone while they were waiting for like the fire department to come or whatever, whoever to come rescue them.
Jeez.
But yeah,
well,
that car.
You notice another thing?
Yeah.
Didn't catch fire.
I know. It's disappointing. It should have exploded. It should have exploded. You know, I as a child, I loved watching that TV show, The A-Team, and it was a Model Y. It was a Model Y. But I loved watching The A-Team. And while they never successfully shot anybody in that show, they made lots of cars explode.
Right.
So they'd shoot. The whoever was chasing them would abandon the car, and then the car would explode. It would always, but everybody would always be blown away from it, and they'd escape. It was really quite the most non-violent, violent TV show of all time. Nobody ever got seriously injured, and I'm pretty sure they always photoed them putting on their seatbelts too. You know, kind of thing. Right. You know, because that was a big thing on TV for a long time. So you'd be jumping in the car, and everybody, you wouldn't see them put the seatbelt on, but you'd clearly see them buckled in. You know, they take a good shot with them buckled in.
It kind of reminds me of these, Chinese sort of kung fu type movies, and these guys get beat all to crap, and particularly when they're involving samurai swords and things. And it's funny. They just all kind of lay there and moan, and rarely. I mean, only in the anime do they actually show blood. All the other live action, these guys just get beat up, and the hero walks away after taking out 20 guys. So yeah. So
here's something kind of sad, and I've talked about this a little bit about how I've been victimized on air conditioning units and stuff like that. Electrify America won't repair vandalized chargers until after police investigation. Well, they shouldn't until there's a police investigation. But apparently they're having their charging stations somewhere keep getting vandalized over and over again.
But they keep cutting the cables, I'll bet.
Yeah. I don't think I'd be out there cutting the cables. Yesterday, Mike and I did a story about putting water, cloth and pouring water on the handle of Tesla superchargers to make them charge faster.
Yeah.
And it works in some situations on version 2 chargers, and when it's hot outside, and it
Right.
cools off the thing, so it'll actually pump electricity 50% faster.
I saw that where you can take a wet paper towel or a wet cloth or something and put it over the handle, and that will speed it up because of the evaporation is carrying the excess heat away.
Yogesh, I haven't personally crashed a car. I've been hit a lot. Now, I guess I shouldn't say that. A few years ago, I had an incident where a doctor was getting off of a long shift and he blew a red light. And I was in a Ford Expedition at the time. And I still, to this day, I still see the look in his eyes, because I was going to come T-bone him. I was going about 70 miles per hour. He pulled out in front of me. And I was able, even though I had my wheels locked up, I was able to swerve, and I took out the front end of his Acura. It wasn't even his Acura, it was his girlfriend's Acura. He was, you know, what do you call it? He was a resident.
Right.
And he was working crazy long overnight shifts. And I've been rear-ended a few times. I've been rear-ended on the freeway. I've been rear-ended at stop signs, stoplights. Oh God. I have not been in an accident.
Remind me not to ride with you then.
I've not been in an accident in Nebraska. That's fortunate. I mean, these were almost all of the accidents I've ever been in happened in Tennessee. And I loved it, because when I moved to Nebraska, my car insurance rate's cut in half. And there's a reason. Nebraska drivers are such good drivers compared to some other cities in this country. And I see criticism of that here, and it's like, look, I'm always relaxed when I show up somewhere in Nebraska, whereas you're just like, when I lived in Tennessee, everywhere you went, it's like, I almost died. You know, and I was this close to death today, and that was all the time. It was really terrifying to drive around that city, because of, I think, just a large percentage of the population was on drugs or alcohol all the time they were driving. That was Memphis, yes. And it was just a terrible scene. All right, let's get to the visual capitalist. We're getting to the visual capitalist. This is something Bill wanted to share today, and this is about how people get around in America, Europe, and Asia.
This was just mind-blowing to me when I came across this last night.
So
look at the methods of mobility, right, that people around the world use by region, and America is just, we're car nuts. Let's just put it that way.
So here's the world averages down here at the bottom. This is 51% are cars, 26% are public transportation, and 22% are either walking or a bicycle. And and you start getting into these numbers here. Look at this. Eastern Asia, 19% cars, 40% public, 35% walking or biking. Southern Asia, you know, very similar. This would be like India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, you know, countries like that. Western Asia, I'm assuming, would be something like the Middle East, maybe, because they don't have a separate designation here for the Middle East.
I would guess probably.
At 43% cars, 28% public, 29%. But and then you start getting some other places like Europe isn't really much different than the world numbers. 51, 26, 22. And you look here at Europe. Europe maybe even a little more on the public transportation side than the world numbers. Then you get to South America, kind of about the same, kind of low on the cars. Central America, kind of low on the cars. But then you get to North America. This would be mainly the US and Canada and Mexico. 92% cars, 5% public transport, 4% walking and biking. And I'm going to bet this 4 and 5 are heavily represented in Central, or, well, it does say Central America. So let's just say that maybe this is more Mexico. Because I have a hard time believing that 5% of people in the United States are doing buses and 4% are biking.
Yeah,
as a
typically when you
regular.
see, yeah, here when you see buses go by, there's maybe 2 or 3 people on board. And of course, that's out of when I generally see them, it's out of rush hour, so that may not be a fair representation. But yeah, it's just you want to go anywhere in the United States, you better own a car. So it's just
Yeah, it's not practical here for the most part. We do have buses, but they only go a few places, and you probably have to travel a good ways to catch a bus. But that could be the case everywhere. But
yeah.
we are not a walking and bus
No.
riding and bike riding society in the slightest. Americans, freedom, driving is part of our freedom, our heritage, and it's tough to change that. And this is kind of funny because one of the articles I wanted to talk about today, and we'll segue right into this,
Okay.
is about Tesla. And Tesla tells its German factory workers to stay home because there's a protest. A group called Disrupt is planning on stopping or protesting this Tesla factory that wants to double in size. The factory can already produce 375,000 Teslas a year, and Musk wants to double it. And they don't want them to cut down any trees and all this other stuff. And they're saying that Tesla, while they have been the world leader in pushing, all things green for, many years, they aren't green enough. And, so people need to stop driving cars. Disrupt actually made a statement. Electric cars are not the solution to phase out carbon-emitting combustion engines. When producing electric cars, the consumption of resources creates an enormous ecological footprint and thus further drives the global climate catastrophe, pointing to the environmental damage caused by the mining of lithium, a key metal in EV batteries. Which, just more people who are kind of disinformed, because I had somebody today talking about, hey, how do we extract more lithium from the Salton Sea in California?
Yeah.
And that's going to be completely different than because it's water extraction.
Yeah.
But they said the plant consumes earth, resources, people, labor, and spits out 6,000 SUVs, killer cars, and monster trucks per week. Now, they don't make any trucks. They don't make cyber trucks in Europe, so they're not spitting out any monster trucks. But it's really an interesting, of all the companies to protest, I could see them protesting an Exxon facility or, British Petroleum or, Norway's oil company, something like that. No, they're going to go protest Tesla of all places. It just seems, like madness, but it kind of goes along with.
Well, the ironic thing is again, look at Europe and the ratio of passenger cars, public transit, what we would call active mobility, which is walking and bicycles and things like that. They're doing, Germany's doing great, right? And if if they want to protest something, come to the United States and help us get the balance, that the rest of the world has. We'll be we'll all be a lot better for it. Which is why I was so pleased again. That a neighbor down the street here, comes up and proudly shows me, her 2 new electric bikes, and they're going to get a 3rd one, right? this is great. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, then yesterday while I was out walking, I saw for the second time an adult male zooming down the street on his stand-up electric kick scooter. I think,
oh, okay.
Wow, this is great. Even the adult, it's not a bicycle, it's a little, little scooter type thing.
Yeah.
But he's running around in that. So, it's starting to happen. People are starting to understand and take action, that is good. He's not riding around in a, $4,000 pickup truck. He's riding in a couple 100-pound
yeah, so
little scooter. So
you'll see people riding around on electric scooters in Omaha, and you'll all, because they have those ones you can rent downtown.
Right.
And you'll also see there's some places where you can rent the bicycles that have the orange on them. or they have the orange coloring on the bicycles. Those are rental e-bikes.
Right.
But I'll be honest, you probably see more exotic cars, which aren't common in Omaha either, than you see those.
Yeah.
Okay, you're more likely to see a fancy car than you are to see one of those. It just they exist. I see people on them, but it's like, hey, wow, there's one there. You just don't see a lot of that.
But it's happening. It's happening.
I will say I did see people protesting Berkshire Hathaway during the conference. They were out protesting their coal usage because Berkshire Hathaway owns an energy company and they own some coal-fired power plants.
Yep.
And I don't know if there was any discussion about that during the conference or what his plans are, but
well, he's a big investor in Occidental, and and again, you got Mid-American, and although Mid-American's really done well in converting over to using lots of wind power, but then they've got a power company out on the West Coast that relies on partly coal generation. So there have been protests in the past. I was at years ago with Michael Mann, who was there, and the climate scientist, and I got to meet Michael, and but he was there to try to raise awareness that, come on, Berkshire, and particularly Warren, to let's get a little bit more enlightened here. So Warren is, he seems to be open to change, because I remember when he said, I'll never buy a company I don't understand, particularly Apple. And what did he do? He went and bought Apple. Now they just
eventually.
And they bought it. They just sold a bunch of it. So he's obviously open to things if it makes sense for the company and the shareholders.
Well, I think less and less things are making sense to him. That's why he's sitting on almost $200 billion in cash.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous to think that they have that much cash, and there's things. Now, when they say that, it's not sitting in a bank drawing zero interest. It's sitting in treasury bonds and other things. They may be doing covered calls. There's other things they're doing with it, and they're probably making closer to 6 to 8% on that money that they call cash. So that's not what the rest of us might call cash. They do have it working in some way, but they are making a return on it that is at least helping it keep pace with inflation. And there's things called inflationary bonds that grow faster the higher inflation is. The Germans actually invented it, and the US has some now as well, but the best inflationary bonds.
So what are the underlying assets? Okay, you got a bond, but that bond is against, whether it's a city tax base or some industry sector. So typically, what do they base that against?
I've never delved into that's an AI word. People are probably going to think I'm AI because I use the word delve. That's supposed to be the first key that somebody's AI. And it's from reading so many AI things, I now use delve in my natural speech. Yeah, I have not delved.
You're phoning it in. It's not you. It's your AI avatar.
Yeah, it's my AI avatar is doing the podcast now. So I'm taking a nap right now. Yeah, but that's supposed to be the first clue that I'm AI, as I said, delve. So if you ever see that in a video or something like that, we're going to delve into the world of electric vehicles. I should just start saying that all the time. See, because I've already had enough people ask if I was AI in some of the videos. But anyways, what I was getting at is I don't understand how the inflationary bonds work. Okay, I've gone to conferences and people have talked about right now to get this was like a year or so ago, saying stay out of equities, get into these inflationary bonds. Your best ones you can get into are out of Germany. And they're just saying this is where you should be putting your money. You should have it out of equities right now and just ride this out. But now, people are back into equities. That was a prior period, but the inflationary bonds were paying so well that it was stymieing investment, because at the rate the inflationary bonds were paying, you couldn't put in a wind farm. It didn't make sense because the interest rates to borrow on the wind farm with money made it just not work. And the same with solar things. And now it's becoming attractive again to do solar and wind projects. Okay, so there's different aspects to that. I wanted to talk about Rivian a little bit.
Sure.
So Rivian in Illinois is targeting now producing 155,000 a year of the new R2, which is going to be a $45,000 electric vehicle. The one thing that's different about Tesla and Rivian, when they say their car is going to be $45,000, it's not like you're going to go down to the Ford dealership and find out that $45,000 car you wanted is $55,000 on the lot.
Right.
Okay. When you order from Rivian or you order, a Model Y from Tesla, it is that price. There's not some goofy thing, and it's a different buying experience. And this is one of the problems that the dealerships have with EVs is Tesla is really cut into the higher end market, and Rivian is starting to do it too. They're not anywhere near the issue that Tesla is, but anyways, I'm just saying that's a big ambitious target. I hope Rivian hits it, and especially. There was some talks about a Rivian Apple partnership we were talking about a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I think there's good things coming for Rivian. It's just they've got to get a little more traction.
Well,
I think that we know this car is going to sell. There's no question it's going to sell like crazy.
It would be near the top of my list if I were in the market for investing $45,000, in an asset that at the moment still, depreciates. If I can figure out how to make it like Elon is trying to do, make an asset that appreciates, then putting $45,000 might make sense. But so I'll keep buying used cars for cash and keeping them for years. That's my strategy.
Yeah, 99. This is a constant problem in that the low end base model car, nobody carries it.
Right.
And part of the problem is the dealerships don't. Every option you add on is a big jump for the dealer in profit, and the dealers make like $50 or $100 if they sell you that true base model car. It's really not profitable for them. The advantage they get is that they get to do all of the warranty work on that car and provide service. Although I don't know if that's if that's great at Toyota, and the Toyotas sell so fast. They're the one car brand that sits on the lot the shortest period of time, and so you're really going to have a hard time finding a Toyota you want. Now, I'd already put the title of today's broadcast out before Bill sent me this next article, but I really wish I'd had this one in the title, because we're going to talk about vampire drones. And I mean, this is really kind of clever because, I think about the drones sneaking up on people and biting them on the back of the neck. And, so this is kind of, like swarms of these vampire drones descending on cities and stealing blood. Yeah. But in reality, the real way these vampire drones work, it's probably a crime, okay, for starters. But
unless they're working for the power company, that's
that was kind of the idea here, right?
Yeah.
And so this vampire drone is designed to fly forever, and
in theory,
in theory, as long as it doesn't need any maintenance, right?
Right.
Yeah. But engineers from the University of Southern Denmark have developed an ingenious technology that enables a drone to fly practically forever without ever having to return to the ground. Thanks to a docking mechanism, its sensors and artificial intelligence system, the drone can recognize a power line every time it needs to recharge its batteries, approach the high voltage cable, and cling to it from below, sucking electricity like some kind of electric vampire.
And by the way, they do have a demonstration video of it doing this. So it basically flies up underneath it with this kind of a Y-shaped thing, and then when it gets close enough, the Y closes and it makes contact with the power line cable. This is assuming it's an open line. It's not that it's wrapped in plastic or some kind of insulator, but that it's an open line, and goes in there and grabs it. What I can't figure out is how they step that down, because you've got what? How many amps do you have flowing through that thing, and how many volts of electricity is going through that power line, and that battery only needs a tiny fraction of that energy. So I'm kind of curious as to what they've done to step that down, but it's a nifty idea for sure.
Well,
I
This
have one.
video
In fact, I
presents the
was
paper,
flying my drone
Autonomous-
yesterday. So
I suspect that the CIA will be on this right away. I mean, I just can't imagine any other way. And then here's one of the drones here underneath some wires
yep.
taking off. I'm gonna move a little faster. There, it's getting underneath one of the power lines.
Yeah, and then it grabbed it right there.
Oh, does it actually grab the power line?
Oh yeah, it grabs the power line. Yeah. It's not
Okay.
It's not trying to do it inductively. It grabs it. It's a contact based.
Oh yeah, so it grabs it
Yep.
and holds
And then
on.
Then when it's full, it releases and boom, off it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Now the idea behind this is for a power line to inspect the integrity of their system, their network. They have to have a crew, and basically generally a helicopter that cruises down the power line to make sure everything is good, right? That there aren't any tree branches and and parts where the lines have sagged and are touching the ground or whatever. So they have to do that basically manually, or use a very expensive to operate helicopter. This thing, you basically just tell it, all right, I want you to inspect the next 20 miles, whatever it is, of power line. And the duration of this thing right now is about 30 minutes before it has to go and recharge. So, let's just say it does 5 miles, in that 30 minutes, which it obviously could do, then goes down and, so it could inspect a fair amount of line and save all that cost and expense of having crews trying to find errors, when it can basically, I'm sure it would then communicate back to the operators and say, hey, we got a problem here at mile number 120 or whatever. It's a nifty idea.
It is. It is an idea, but I could see the military parking drones, rather than having an aircraft in the air. Of course, the type of drones the military and the CIA use, they'd be a little too big to be hanging from a power line. I was just sitting there thinking, like, it could sit there and hover and be connected and taking power just to sit there and take off when it needed. Yeah.
No, these are connected, but the application of the Ukrainians just took out an oil refinery 1,200 kilometers inside Russia with one of their drones. Now these are piston engine powered, so they're gasoline powered. The electrics wouldn't do that. But imagine though, if the Ukrainians know when the Ukrainians have this, they could just hop down, power lines. They just to wherever, and they take out the substation or whatever facility. So, and of course, the reverse can happen too in a war where the same at us. So.
Yeah, but it is kind of fascinating to see that, because I'm sitting here thinking there's going to be some military applications to this in a hurry.
Yeah, and while we're talking about it, they now have that NASA's talking about this ion thrust system that's being developed, right? That they can now, with this new ion thruster, they could conceivably reach Mars in just 2 months.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's electric drive. So
oh wow.
Yeah. So this will be interesting just to watch on the space side of things, And you probably heard about the new version of the helicopter that they're sending to the moon Titan.
No.
Yeah, they're designing after the success of the helicopter
One on Mars.
On Mars, it was supposed to go fly for half an hour or something like that and die, and it flew 72 missions before the blades cracked off of it. So they're taking that information, they're building that into a larger unit now that they're going to send to the Moon Titan, and then they're going to launch that because Titan has a bit of an atmosphere, so you can actually do more in the way aerodynamically on Titan. So that also, of course, will be electric powered. So, although what the central generation source is, I can't tell you at this point. I don't know, but anyway, it's fun. It's fun to talk about those.
Right, it always is.
And before we go too far, and we want to talk about No, we don't want to talk about UFOs, but I am. I was at an event in California, and my wife and I, this was, I think, a Challenge Bobendum event in California back in the latter part of the 2000s. And we were sitting in this restaurant, and suddenly all the power, I think it wasn't Camarillo, but I don't remember exactly where, but it was a restaurant there in California, and all the lights in the town went off. And we're thinking, what happened? And then momentarily later, because it's kind of an open air restaurant, and I look up in the sky, and there's this object goes flying over the top of us. And later, the next day, we hear that there were people who saw some kind of an object hovering over a substation in that town. And of course, the speculation is it was there sucking up energy from the substation, right, to power it. So who knows? Maybe we're headed that direction.
I wouldn't be surprised if our military doesn't have something like that.
Oh,
Based on stuff I heard from the early 90s, late 80s, and think about how long ago that was now, that was 30 years ago, that was probably 35 years ago that was going on. The stuff that I heard about, that I can only imagine where they've gotten to today.
Yeah, well,
and the fact that, one of the arguments was, why did they retire the SR-71? Well, they didn't need it anymore because they have something better. But what is it? For sometimes the speculation was, about things like the B-2 and other things like that. But the B-2 isn't fast, and it's certainly not being used for reconnaissance. But, I'm sure there's something more stealthy than the SR-71 out there that they're probably using for the same kind of surveillance. And don't need it anymore. Yeah, but anyways,
okay,
our next,
keep moving on. All right, we're off the track.
Yes, our next topic has to do with Lexus and Toyota. So it appears Lexus has filed some trademarks indicating that it's planning to launch a fully electric version of the ES sedan. Now, the ES sedan is definitely it's a Camry upgrade. So the Lexus ESs have always been basically the Camry family that have just been nicer than what they make the Camry. Although you can get some Camrys in pretty nice trim.
It was like the Cadillac was, upgraded Chevrolet, basically built on the same line.
Right. But they're launching a fully electric version of the ES, and they're most likely going to launch a fully electric Camry as well. And the trademarks, Lexus looking to introduce two electric versions of the ES350E and the ES500E. The only other Lexus whose name ends with lowercase e is the RZ, which is also electric. So this patent filing strongly suggests plans for an electric ES. Not a whole lot of. No, it's just that it's likely 2026 production.
Okay.
Still. Yeah. Now there's some talk here. A base ES350E would probably be a single motor drive vehicle with about 300 horsepower, while the 500E would probably be 400 plus horsepower.
And drive probably.
Oh, yeah. I suspect both of them would probably be all-wheel drive.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the Camry was only ever available in front-wheel drive, as far as I remember.
Yeah. Did they make any mention as to what chemistry they're going to use in the batteries? Or they solid state, sodium, or
Not
just
much. No, there's no speculation here
Yeah.
on what that might be, but that's just good to see. Toyota has a new ground up EV platform which promises up to 620 miles of range. You know, I see this. Somebody sent me this thing yesterday. Toyota working on a 900-mile battery. And it's like, you can already make a 900-mile battery. Why would you want to? You got to go to the bathroom at some point. You got to stop.
That's our bladder versus battery.
Yeah.
From last
Yeah, I mean, you realistically, the max you could drive is about 5 hours. Maybe you could cover 350 miles, maybe.
Maybe.
EV at 80 miles per hour, probably not going to go that far, even if it had a 400 plus mile range, because the EV battery does degrade, or, you know, it burns fuel faster.
The
at that
faster
higher
you go,
speed,
the more juice it uses. Yeah.
just like a gas car does.
Yep. Same
So,
way.
but anyways, you know, yeah, the amount of time you stop is not as big of a deal as people really make it out to be. Yeah. As long as the charging station works and hasn't been vandalized.
As long as the charging station works and you've got your cell phone with you, you can work, you can entertain yourself with, online games or watch movies or watch us.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You catch up with your EV World podcasts.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyways, so someone tried to smuggle 2 Tesla Cybertrucks into Russia. This was caught at the Lithuanian border to Belarus. And so there's an embargo against Russia. Any vehicles that are worth more than about 50,000 US are supposed to be embargoed and not allowed to be moved into Russia. And somebody was trying to bring in 2 Cybertrucks, which is you can't even buy the Cybertruck in Europe. Never mind Russia.
Yeah.
So
you know that the MS Dolly, the ship that took out the Key bridge, they the girders and things came down and crushed open a couple of the shipping containers.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, what was in those shipping containers? Used cars. And while they haven't been able to look at the VIN numbers, there's a lot of speculation locally that those were stolen cars trying to be smuggled out of the company on the MS Dolly. So once the girders get removed, I think here in the next day or so, they're going to remove that girder, and then we can start offloading some of those containers, and we'll be able to check the VIN numbers on those cars and see if they were legitimate exports or whether they were stolen. Yeah.
Yeah. So there wasn't much information other than the fact that appeared to be being smuggled into Russia.
I'll bet some oligarch wanted him for his give him to his teenagers.
So we never talk about Polestar. I mean, we've discussed it before, but I bet we haven't talked about Polestar, even mentioning it, for months.
Oh, I don't remember. So we better talk. If I don't remember, we better talk about it.
Yeah, so Polestar 2 lease price drops to $299 a month thanks to a new $10,000 discount. So this was basically a 2024 Polestar 2 long-range dual motor, can be released for $299 for 27 months with $3,300 due at signing. Now, I don't know a lot about this vehicle. Lists for $55,300. It's the same price as leasing the single motor, which is $5,000 cheaper. The lease price is exactly the same. The Polestar 2 is expected to be phased out in 27 to be replaced by the Polestar 7.
Yeah.
Let's see. It made its debut in 2019, and they released their 150,000th car in August of 2023. So they're actually making a lot more cars than a lot of other brands. I just hadn't seen Polestar come across my desk in a long time.
Well,
so I just thought I'd mention that.
I actually have, there is someone here in Nebraska, I think he's in Lincoln, if I remember, who came up from Lincoln and took part in our Papillion Days parade, because Sierra Club always organizes about 3 or 4 or 5 of us to, put a show on in the local community parades. And this guy drove his black Polestar up here, so I got a chance to talk to him, and he said he really likes it. So I haven't had a chance to drive one, or I guess I could have sat in it if if I thought about it. But yeah, so we do have them, and you can buy them here in our beautiful little community. So, but that's all I can tell you about it, other than the guy had it, he liked it, and they're an attractive car. The coming up Polestars look like they really look great. So
they're
anyway,
nice looking vehicles.
yeah.
All right. So our last topic for today is, will better superconductors transform the world? And you wanted to talk about this today.
Yeah, I came across this. This is really a fairly lengthy interview that was done in The Joy of Why. So it's a long read, and I'll be honest, I wasn't able to read all of it through. But a couple of things that stood out to me was the fact that when they talk about when you pay your electricity bill, what you're paying for is the resistance of the passage of electricity through the wire. So the inefficiency, what we're paying for, is the inefficient transmission and movement of electrons through that wire, which I thought was really fascinating, because what happens when you get to superconductivity, which basically says electrons can move freely through the medium, which in this case generally we're talking about is wires. You can move freely through that medium without encountering any resistance from the other electrons that make up that medium, whether it be copper or whether it be aluminum or graphite, whatever it is. So it can move smoothly. So and this goes back to an experiment I think that was done in like 1911 or a scientist in Europe discovered this property. So we've been working gradually, slowly towards figuring out how to do this, not at 453 degrees below zero, which ironically is the same temperature as space, right? It
Right.
2.7 Kelvin or something of that nature. So if we can figure out how to get that to operate at what we would consider room temperature, basically in the 40, 50 to 67, within the livable environment for human life, for any life for that matter. If we can figure out how to do that, then suddenly the ramifications of that across our energy production and consumption sphere, everything from supercomputers to, to an electric car. Everything right in that spectrum that uses electricity, that uses those, for want of a better term, movement of electrons through that medium, will be significantly improved. So basically, the hunt for zero conductivity is the hunt for 100% efficient transmission of energy, which we are gradually getting closer and closer to that. So that's why, again, it's a long, lengthy, article. It's also in audio form if you want to listen to it. In fact, what I may do as I go my walk this afternoon, I may go ahead and try to plug this in and listen to it. So I can
it's quite a long interview,
long,
and this comes to us from quantamagazine.org. Quantamagazine.org, and it may be worth a read, and a lot of it is just, what you're stating. When you're putting in any type of energy production, the challenge really is the transmission of it. Mm-hmm. And when you're paying your electric bill, it's not so much that it costs a lot of money to produce the energy itself. You're paying most of your cost is actually transmitting it through the lines,
getting it to
you.
Yep.
Yeah, and that is hard for a lot of people, I think, to comprehend how that works. And that's why you try to have as many of your power plants as close to the end, use of the power as you possibly can. It's just not always able to be done.
This was the big debate at the turn of the 19th century between Tesla and AC alternating current and Edison and direct current, because Edison, with his direct current, you had to have a power plant within a 3, 4, 5 mile radius of where your customers were, and Tesla's view was, look, with alternating current, I can use the power out of Niagara Falls and transfer that to New York, so you don't need to have a coal plant in your neighborhood spewing coal dust and smoke and toxins and things from it, and polluting. Imagine a New York City where there was a coal-fired power plant, every few blocks.
That's hard to fathom.
That's hard to fathom. So that was the beauty of going to the Tesla alternating current system, is you didn't have to do that. You could have your power, coming from hydroelectric power up the Hudson from Buffalo and Niagara Falls and that part of the country. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've used up all of our time for today. And folks, I see we've had lots of people watching today, and really appreciate you guys listening in and hearing us rant about electric vehicles and green energy.
Yeah,
and
we should probably rename this thing, instead of EV World, we should rename it EV Rant.
The electric rant.
Oh, maybe I'll change the thing on my hat here to EV Rant.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, well, we could call it Boomer's Rant on EVs.
Right. Good rants. Good rants.
Good rants.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we don't know anything. Those boomers don't know anything. Yeah, I feel bad. I don't know as much as Bill. Bill's been doing this for 26 years. So, it's interesting to
see. I don't know half of what there is. It's an amazing field to be a part of. It really is.
It's kind of like cryptocurrency or AI. Yeah. I don't care how much you think you know. You really don't know.
You don't. You're scratching the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. You're always scratching the surface. There's always something new. And I get people all the time that try to talk like they know everything, and they want to know if you know as much as they do. And it's just like, look, you just know something different than what I know. Yeah. So anyways, all right, folks. Well, thanks for watching, and y'all have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow with Adib with our stock market show. Yeah, and otherwise.
I should mention that I will not be here Tuesday. Tuesday is primary election day here in Nebraska, and I am a poll worker. So I will be working from 7 a.m. in the morning till 9 p.m. at night, making sure that the election system in our precinct just over here goes smoothly, and the votes get counted accurately. So.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, we appreciate you doing your civil service there, Bill. Oh, anyways, here we go. I'm cutting the stream.